Today, we're tackling something a bit unusual. It's a thought experiment you shared excerpts from a fictional encounter.
A very intriguing one. General Custer, 1876, meeting a reporter who claims to be from 2025.
Exactly. It's definitely not our usual historical document.
No, but this fictional setup, this clash of eras focused on Custer, it gives us a really unique lens, actually. We get to explore, historical perspective and that sheer shock of the future through 19th century eyes.
That's the angle. So our mission here is to unpack what this reporter supposedly reveals to Custer. How might he react? What's the impact of getting this, impossible knowledge?
And crucially, what really jumps out as significant when we look back from 2025 at this imagined 1876 conversation.
Right. Okay, let's get into this unusual meeting.
Well, the first thing is that gap, isn't it? The initial conversation, it just highlights this huge gulf in understanding.
Custer just dismisses the talk of, horseless carriages and flying contraptions?
Naturally, it grounds us immediately in the technology, or lack thereof, of his time.
It's almost hard to really picture him getting his head around those ideas.
But then there's a shift, isn't there? When the reporter mentions the Little Bighorn, June 25th, 1876.
Ah, yeah. Suddenly that skepticism, it hardens. He wants proof. Tangible proof, the text says.
And the proof the reporter offers is just, it's mind-boggling for the time, landing on the moon.
Wow, just stop and think about that for 1876.
Exactly. The moon wasn't just a rock in the sky for many people then. It had spiritual significance, divine placement.
So Custer's reaction isn't just, I don't believe you.
No, it's deeper. It sounds like he rejects it as almost blasphemous, an affront to the divine order. It really shows that collision, rapid scientific advance hitting a more, let's say, traditional worldview.
Yeah, it really hammers home how our whole understanding of the universe has changed. So from that incredible claim, the reporter then pivots.
Pivots to what he calls horrors and wonders, and starts with predicting world wars within 50 years.
Global wars. On a scale Custer couldn't imagine.
And the technology described: submarines, flying machines, dropping bombs, poison gas, trench warfare. It's completely outside his experience.
And his experience was brutal, the Civil War, but still largely 19th century tactics.
Right, so his horror at the idea of death dwarfing the Civil War, that feels very real. It signals a fundamental shift in what war is.
And it gets darker. The reporter then describes the Holocaust, the Second World War.
Adolf Hitler, Germany, the systematic industrial murder of 6 million Jews. Custer's disbelief that a, quote, civilized nation could do this, it's almost palpable.
It really underlines that horrific capacity for organized cruelty.
On a scale never seen before. And then piled on top of that, the atomic bomb.
American science unleashing the power of the atom to wipe out a city with one bomb. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are implied.
Custer calls it demonic, unholy. It reflects the sheer terror, this new kind of destructive power, something completely outside of prior human experience.
So after these devastating conflicts, the story shifts again to global power.
Yeah, the reshaping of the world order, the British Empire's decline.
Which for Custer would be unthinkable. Britain was the superpower.
Absolutely. So imagining it dissolving, India, parts of Africa, Canada, Australia gaining independence, it's a seismic shift. Britain becomes an ally, a close one, but not the global power anymore.
And the U.S. rises.
The United States emerges as a leading superpower. Again, probably hard for him to picture given the recent Civil War and everything else.
Then there's the Russian Empire collapsing.
Replaced by the Communist Soviet Union, a major adversary. This whole idea of communism.
A totally different system.
Right. The reporter explains it: government ownership, the party control, the promise of equality, but often leading to, tyranny and scarcity, and this Cold War concept.
Threats, spies, proxy wars, all because of the fear of atomic weapons.
Exactly. And maybe the most surprising shift for Custer, China.
From what he knew in 1876, ancient, fractured,
to becoming this huge economic and military power in the 21st century, actually rivaling the U.S. That would be almost impossible to conceive. It shows how fluid power is over time.
And even within Europe, enemies like France and Germany.
Forming the European Union, binding together to prevent more wars. That's a massive change in relationships.
It highlights that possibility maybe of overcoming deep historical hatreds for a common goal, like peace.
It all reinforces this theme of a world just constantly, unpredictably changing.
The conversation then seems to turn inward, toward America, the struggle for civil rights for Black Americans.
Yes, a long, hard struggle. Decades of segregation, discrimination, violence.
And the reporter highlights the eventual change through protest, law, sacrifice.
Culminating incredibly in the election of Barack Obama, a man of African descent, father from Kenya, as president in 2008, serving 2 terms.
For Custer, given the racial hierarchy of his time, that must have been profoundly shocking.
Oh, undoubtedly. Challenging the very foundation of his social understanding, the perceived natural order.
It underscores how that ideal of equality became central, even if, as the reporter notes, the reality is still imperfect.
A guiding principle, though, yes.
But the future isn't painted as perfect. There are new threats. September 11th, 2001.
The terrorist attacks. 19 men, fanatical Islam, hijacking passenger planes.
Flying machines used as weapons against civilians, crashing into the World Trade Center in New York, the Pentagon. Nearly 3,000 dead.
An act of war, but by a group, not a nation-state in the traditional sense.
Custer's reaction in the text is, well, he sees it as cowardly, this new kind of insidious warfare, Islam striking America.
It introduces this whole different type of conflict, asymmetric warfare,
Right.
and the long, complex wars that followed in Afghanistan and Iraq with debated outcomes.
And another point mentioned is the creation of Israel.
The State of Israel, 1948, fulfilling that ancient dream of Jewish return after the Holocaust, creating a homeland.
But also leading to decades of conflict with Arab nations, with the Palestinians, and unresolved conflict drawing in world powers.
More complexity, more ongoing struggle in this future world.
Okay, so then the focus comes right back to Custer himself, his legacy.
Yes, the reporter apparently tells him he's mostly remembered for one thing, the defeat at Little Bighorn.
Oof. All his other contributions, Civil War battles, hardships on the plains, trying to impose order overshadowed.
His concern about this is really clear in the text. How will history judge him? How will that whole effort of westward expansion be seen?
Will bringing civilization, as he saw it, be judged as mere conquest by these future standards he can't comprehend?
It raises that critical point about historical interpretation, doesn't it? How perspectives shift. Little Bighorn, a symbol of heroic sacrifice to some, but increasingly viewed through the lens of military arrogance and the tragedy inflicted on Native Americans.
His complexity reduced to the last stand.
Exactly, that archetype.
And this leads him to that ultimate, agonizing question.
Can knowing the future change it? Can he change it? Avert the disaster, the infamy?
And the reporter gives him, what? An ambiguous answer?
Pretty much. Leaves him with that immense weight, free will versus destiny, the burden of knowing.
Which explains his final command, telling the reporter to leave him alone.
He needs to process it all, grapple with this impossible future, his own impending fate. Alone.
So what a journey. We've walked through this incredible hypothetical information dump.
The sheer breadth of it, technology, global war, social upheaval, shifting power. It's staggering to contemplate from an 1876 perspective.
And you, listening, you've sort of witnessed this impossible knowledge transfer across time.
It really forces reflection, doesn't it? On the scale of change, the unpredictability of history's path.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you to mull over. Of everything the reporters supposedly told Custer, wars, the technology, the social changes, his own legacy, which single thing do you think would have been the most difficult for his 19th century mind to truly grasp?
That's a great question. What would be the most fundamentally incomprehensible?
And what does that difficulty tell us about how progress and change actually happen? And maybe flip it around. What parts of our world today might just completely blow the mind of someone from, say, the early 20th century?
A lot to think about there.
Definitely. Until our next deep dive, keep those fascinating sources and questions coming.